Okay, in this video we're going to talk about and walk through how to create a rack. This is a straight face tooth rack, and it's going to be based off of our 5-inch pitch diameter gear. It's a 20 tooth 5-pitch diameter gear with a pressure angle of 20. We're going to go ahead and start working with the geometry here to start to create our straight tooth. To do this, I'm going to go ahead and create, first I'm going to turn the sketch on for my original tooth. So I'm going to find the sketch that works off of my original tooth here, and I'm going to make that sketch visible. So I'm going to right click and make that visible because I'm going to need to see that pitch diameter. Then I'm going to go ahead and grab a 2D sketch, drop it on the front face. Then I need to find out some information about the area where the rack is going to intersect with the tooth itself. So I need to get a straight line to the center of this arc length here. So in order to make an arc length, I'm going to grab my arc. I'm going to come down and find arc center point. Find the center point of the gear. I'm going to come up to the intersection of the pitch diameter and where I want to start my arc and draw an arc from one side to the other. Now that I have an arc, I should be able to get a line. There'll be a radial line from the center of my gear out to the center of my arc. I'm doing this for several reasons, but the next thing I need to do is I need to get a tangent circle, and that tangent circle is going to run from the gear tooth faces using this as the center point. So I'm going to grab my circle tool, I'm going to select the center point, and I'm going to come out until I find the tangent constraint is turning on, and I'm going to touch the edge of my tooth face. Once I do that, I now have a tangent circle, and I can continue moving forward. What we're going to do next is we're going to do an offset. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my offset tool, and I'm going to select the circle, right-click, hit continue, and I'm going to start coming in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to offset inside by 0.006. I'm offsetting 0.006 because I want the total backlash relationship between my rack and my gear to be 0.012. So giving it 0.006 on both sides is going to give me that total backlash that I'm looking for. So once I do that, I hit enter, and I now have that distance offset, and that's going to be the backlash. So after I do that, what I can do is I can then delete the larger circle. I do not need this larger circle anymore. So I'm going to just hit escape to get out of the offset tool, select my larger circle, and hit delete. Now what I need to do is I need to start setting up some information out here to find the rest of my tooth for my gear. Okay, so the tooth that we're going to create, the tooth is going to have a 20-degree pressure angle that's going to be in relationship to this center radial line. So we're going to go ahead and extend the center radial line out. But we're also going to need to figure out where the top of the tooth is going to mate into this gear area, and then also the bottom. So the same information is going to work as far as the top of the tooth is going to be the addendum, the bottom is going to be the dedendum. So we also need to figure out what those distances will be. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to take and figure out the addendum, which is going to be the top of the tooth, which is going to be 1 divided by the diametrical pitch. The diametrical pitch for our gear is 4, so the addendum distance will be 0.25. So I'm going to grab my line, I'm going to come from the center point, and I'm going to draw directly on top of my radial line, 0.25, and hit enter. What that does is that now gives me the distance that I am away from my pitch location for my addendum. And then I'm going to draw a perpendicular line at that point. That's going to be the top of my tooth. And what I'm doing is I'm locating the top of my tooth. Now I need to locate the bottom of my tooth. So to come up with the dedendum, I'm going to take 1.25 and divide that by the diametrical pitch. So I'm going to grab my line. I'm going to select this, and I'm going to come directly straight in that radial line away. All right, now I'm going to do 1.25 divided by 4. That gives me 0.3125. So it's going to be 0.3125 and hit enter. And that should be in a direct straight line, as I can see. Yes, it is. And that is going to be the dedendum. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to draw a line at this point. This is going to be the bottom of my tooth. Okay, now we're going to get the tooth face drawn in. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab my line tool, and I'm not going to lock it onto anything, okay? I simply just want to sketch a line through the side of where my tooth would roughly be, okay? Then I'm going to grab my tangent tool, my tangent constraint, and I'm now going to constrain the line I just drew to the face of the circle, okay? Now, what happened was my circle shrunk, my line did not move. So you have to be very careful. I'm going to undo, and I'm now going to have to put a dimension on my circle so that my circle is now constrained in size. Remember, that was simply an offset circle. Now I'm going to grab my tangent tool again, select my line, and then my circle, and the line should be what moves to the edge of the circle. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to grab a line, and I'm just going to go ahead and rough in a line. Doesn't really matter how long or the angle, just get it roughly into the position that you'd like it to be. Then go ahead and grab the tangent tool, select the line, and then again select the circle, and the line should move so it has a tangent relationship to the circle. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to now grab my dimension tool, and I'm now going to dimension and get an angle dimension between the line I just drew that's now tangent to the circle and the center line. This is where my 20-degree pressure angle comes in. So I'm at 20.7 whatever, I'm going to type in 20, and then my line should be what moves to the relationship with this particular center line. So I got to make sure that I have 20 degrees. So this is at 19 something. I'm going to go ahead and make it 20 and hit enter, and the line moves in its position. That is where the 20-degree pressure angle comes into play when creating and making this gear tooth. Okay, next step that you need to do is you just need to do your extend tool and trim tool. So we're going to extend this line. We're going to trim this line. That's going to help build this side of the tooth. We'll go ahead and we're going to extend this line. Then we're going to go ahead and trim this line and just keep working our way around. We'll grab extend to the other direction. Oh, get it. Problem here, I guess, is dimension. We're going to go and delete the dimension. We'll delete this dimension. So we can go ahead and extend this line and then this line. And then we can extend, keep working our way through and to here. So now we have a pretty good rough outline of what this tooth is going to look like. And I can go ahead and now I can even start trimming out the center line because I know I don't need this line anymore. We can get rid of that, and we can get rid of, well, we're going to actually, I want to trim this off because I still want to know the center point here because I'm going to need to know the center point in order to get my to get my pitch line on my rack. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim off this line. Next thing I need to do is I need to get this tooth profile out of this drawing and into a new drawing so that I can start building the rack in a new drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the sketch for now. Just save this so I don't lose this. Then I'm going to go and open up a new drawing file. So I'm going to do File, New, open up a standard IPT part file, and go back to my gear. Now I'm going to get back into that last sketch, and I'm going to select all of the geometry here that I want to take with me. So this is the geometry that I want, so I select it all, and then I'm going to do a Control-C. And I'm going to go into my new gear, or this is going to be my rack, and I'm going to start a 2D sketch here, bring it in and do a Control-V. Now, somewhere, there's my geometry. So my geometry comes in, and now I would be ready to start working with this tooth. The first thing that I'm going to need to do is probably flip this thing around and get this thing lined up. I don't have any other extrusions to start working with here, so I probably want to get something extruded as a long bar stock that I can start working with. Okay, with the gear tooth in the new file, if there's geometry that came with it from your gear, like this arc, that's part of I believe it's the flank of the other gear. I'm just going to delete it. I don't need those there, so it's just additional. What I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to get this rotation around so that, well, first I want to rotate this so my gear tooth is facing up. I just like to build them facing up. And then make sure that this is now flat to the horizontal constraint. So I'm going to grab my rotate tool, highlight the geometry. I'm going to grab a center point, doesn't really matter where. And then I need to figure out, well, what's my rotation going to be to bring this thing around to this point here, okay? Or if I at least get it to be horizontal, then I can mirror it into the other direction. So I got to kind of figure that information out. So before I do that, I need to get some knowledge. So I'm actually just going to draw a horizontal line, and I'm going to measure, and I'm going to get a dimension from these two. This is going to be 13.5. So that's going to be the angle I'm going to use for rotation. So I can go ahead and delete those things. I now know that. Grab my rotate tool. I'm going to type in 13.5. I'm going to select the geometry to rotate. I'm going to select a point, which is going to be my pivot point, and it jumps to 13.5, and I hit apply. That being set up, I can now just go ahead, hit done. I could go ahead and then use this tool, and I can mirror this along its own axes, hit done, and I can delete the bottom one. And then the mirror line, I believe, nope, that did not mirror, so I'm going to go ahead and drop this back in. So now my tooth is facing up. I just like to draw it facing up. That's just the way I like to do it. And so now I'm ready. I could go ahead and extrude this one tooth. Then I can go ahead and build the bar stock for the rack underneath of it. But before I can extrude this, I don't necessarily need all this information inside here. And I also would like to have my pitch line. So I'm going to grab the center point. Before I get rid of this geometry, I'm going to grab that center point right there, and I'm going to draw a line. This is going to be a reference line that I can use later to find my pitch line, the distance between my addendum and dedendum. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the circle now. I can delete the arc, and I can actually delete the addendum also, because I don't need that there. And I can go ahead, I should be able to extrude this one tooth. So if I get out of my sketch, finish the sketch, grab my extrude tool, finds the tooth, and I will make this rack 0.25 thick because that's how large and thick my gear was back here. This is 0.25 in thickness. Okay? So with that all set and done, this is my new part. I'm going to now build the bar stock underneath of this that I will then use to array my tooth on. Okay, we're now ready to create a piece of bar stock underneath of this tooth so that we can then be able to do an array and create the remaining teeth on our rack. So I'm going to go ahead and just draw straight down, and I'm just going to make 0.5, nothing super fancy, and we'll just run out this way. We'll just go 10 inches, and again we'll come back up 0.5 and back across here. Good. That's all set. We'll go ahead and extrude our piece of stock. All right, we're going to go ahead and extrude in this direction. 0.25, good. All right, so now what I'm ready to do is start the array process. And to do that, I'm going to then just select the extrusion that I want to array. I'm going to grab my circular pattern, and I'm going to go ahead and tell it that not circular pattern, rectangular pattern. And then I'm going to give it the direction that I want it to be moving in. Obviously, it's not going to go in that direction. I'm going to change that. Now I've got to give it the distance. And the distance is going to be the pitch diameter times pi divided by the number of teeth. So I'm going to go ahead and work that out as pitch diameter is 5 times 3.14 and then divided by the number of teeth. So that is 0.785. Okay, so we'll type in here 0.785. That's going to be the spacing from one tooth point to another point. And let's go ahead and let's make several of these across this. Looks like we can fit more. We can do 12. Ooh, let's go 13. Let's go back to 12. There. Oh, that's 112. There we go. And hit OK. So now we have a small rack that we can take and see if we can actually mesh this up with our gears and make some motion and movement.